awarding a proclamation to Lydia Romero Cruz. And Lydia was born and raised in the city of Santa Ana. She came from a small but very cohesive community named Logan. She attended Santa Ana schools and belonged to several Santa Ana community associations. Lydia was deeply immersed in her community and in her culture. After graduating from college, Lydia returned to Santa Ana to teach and to bring her talents back to the community in which she was raised and loved with passion. Lydia was a beloved teacher, a wife, a mother, a daughter, and her unexpected illness and her sudden passing brought much sorrow to all who knew her. In 2000, the Santa Ana Unified School District named a school after Lydia Romero Cruz to honor her legacy and to recognize the educational benefits and gifts that she brought to her community. Proud of her Latina heritage, Lydia utilized her ability to speak English and Spanish, and with a passion effectively communicated with the students and their families. Described as a patient yet determined young woman, Lydia Romero Cruz sought to leave a positive impact on those she encountered. She wanted her students to experience success as she had through the means of educational opportunities. Her goal was to bring the American dream within reach to her students and to those future leaders. She strived to teach, model, and to mentor that through hard work, perseverance, and dedication, they too will live the American dream. Lydia worked for Santa Ana Unified School District as a teacher and as administrator. And up until the time of her passing, she gave back to her community each day. Lydia Romero Cruz was and always will be an inspiration to the Santa Ana community, and she will be remembered for her dedication and commitment to the place she called home and for bringing the American dream within reach to many students. It is with tremendous pride that I present this proclamation posthumously to honor a fellow educator for her unselfish commitment. It is extra special that Lydia Romero Cruz is honored on this very day, the 18th day of August, which is the exact day of the official ratification of the women's suffrage, which today marks 100 years. On behalf of the mayor, the council, and the entire city of Santa Ana, we present this proclamation proudly to the Romero and to the Cruz families to preserve her memory in our beautiful city forever. And Mr. Romero is not feeling well today, but he emailed, and the city clerk has some comments for the public. Are you able to read those for us, Daisy?
Yes, I have them with me. Thank you, Councilmember Mendoza. Good evening, members of the City Council. I am unable to participate this evening, but wish to thank Councilwoman Nelida Mendoza and the other members of the City Council for their proclamation honoring my daughter, Lydia Romero Cruz. The Romero and Cruz families are grateful for this opportunity to share the life and work of our beloved family member. In closing, I would like to ask City Council continue its support for low-income housing for those in our community who need quality and affordable accommodations. Thank you, Sam Romero.
Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, Councilmember Mendoza. Now, Madam Clerk, there's a third presentation, correct?
Yes, we do. This is from Planning and Building Agency on the general plan update, and Vince Fergroso is coming up to speak on this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Vince Fergoso, the Planning Manager with the Planning Division, here to provide you with an update on the city's general plan. First, I want to kind of give you a quick overview of what a general plan is. It's basically our long-range blueprint for development in the city. It's also called our Constitution, and it's a guide for future development in the city. State law requires us to have 7 elements in the general plan. What you'll see here is we have a list of 7 elements that are required by state law. We've also got an 8th topic there, environmental justice, which I will go over briefly for you there, since it's a key component of our new general plan. Where we're at today, well, we've got a general plan that's currently in place. It was last updated comprehensively in 1982, so almost 40 years ago. So obviously, many things have changed in the last 40 years. That general plan right now has 16 different elements. Most of them are very thin and don't have a lot of context to them. And when you put together a general plan, you've also got to provide an EIR, which studies the impacts of that general plan. That EIR and general plan were done, again, both in the 1980s. So basically, it's time for us to update this document, which you have been gracious and provided some funding for us to do that work. The general plan is proposed here that you'll see in the next few months here has a 25-year horizon, so we're looking out to about 2045 for our vision here. It's going to be a document with 12 elements instead of 16. It's also currently in place. We have a general plan EIR that's currently out for review. That EIR is going to study all these current growth assumptions and impact associated with all these different policies and goals that we have here. What you see there is a list of the 12 different elements. Again, it contains the 7 mandatory elements plus 5 additional elements. You can see below there on the bottom there, those are our 5 core values that we've heard from the very beginning, from day one. That's what's important to the community. And those are culture, sustainability, health, education, and equity. So everything that we've done here has been revolving around those 5 core values, and we've always kept them in mind as we move forward and start putting our goals and policies together. One of the items I spoke about a few minutes ago was environmental justice. That is required by a state law that was approved a couple of years ago in 2018, and it basically says that when you do a general plan update, you have to implement these environmental justice goals and policies in your document. There's 2 ways of doing it. There's one is to set aside a separate element, and the other way is to kind of integrate them and weave them into your proposed elements. And that's the path that we've taken. We feel that these 12 elements are so critical and so important that these core values for the environmental justice should be blended in throughout the entire document. So what you'll see here is there's a total of 42 different environmental justice topics and goals and policies in our general plan. And they cover everything from items such as how we're going to reduce impacts, air pollution impacts, particulate impacts to our community. How we're going to provide access to healthy foods, especially in our underserved areas. Maintaining, increasing our public engagement as we go through this document. Safe and sanitary housing. Land uses, how we get rid of conflicting and incompatible land uses. For instance, industrial uses are noxious next to residential. So what we've done here with health as our core value is created a new community element that kind of implements all those different goals, keeps our core values in place, and weaves this environmental justice topic throughout the entire document. What we've been doing since day one is outreaching. This general plan is not the staff's document, it's a community document. And with that, we need to go out to the community and gather as much input and feedback as possible. So starting back in December 2015, we created a general plan advisory group, a list of 17 key players in the city that covered a wide range of interest, from the affordable housing group to some commissioners, some youth, and we take all those there and help to start to generate our goals and policies. We also use ComLink as a tool to go out there and do outreach. We've been to the neighborhood associations. These are 21 that are listed in environmental justice areas. We've hit the youth. Again, it's a 25-year plan. I won't be around 25 years, but who will be? The youth of Santa Ana. So it's very critical that we outreach to them as well and get their feedback on how this document had to be shaped and formed. We've hit the business groups.
Because you're going to be around another 50, that's why.
Try to be like Mr. Ono. Many business groups and also community-based organizations that we've outreached.
Si se puede.
There's 44 different groups that we've outreached over the last 5 years in this document. So some of the key topics that we've heard and key themes through the general plan outreach is our cultural, historic, and community assets are special. We need to protect them and enhance them wherever we can. Land use, obviously, a very critical part of the document. We're sure that it also, in addition to creating a land use plan where we can get some growth in the city, but also address healthy and active lifestyles. the resources we have, be sure they're equitably distributed throughout the city, be sure we're a sustainable and a livable city, and that education and economic prosperity are key and critical to this document as well. As I mentioned, one of the key focuses in any general plan element is the land use element. It's our plan for growth. So what you see here in the blue is our list of all of our different plans that we have right now that are in place. Everything from Harbor to Bristol to our transit zoning code on downtown. And what we did here, made an effort here to take a look at some focus areas that needed some reinvestment and some new consideration for development. And we try to tie these into our current plans here. And what you can see here in the red or the maroon is our 5 key focus groups that you've all been updated at one time or another on in the past on these things. So you can see all these plans are trying to link it and trying to get a unified development proposal and plan through the city here. So this will be more detailed. We come back and meet with you in the future. You'll get a little more detail on these focus plans here. So this is our next steps. So we recently released the EIR for the general plan, as well as the actual 12 elements themselves. Those were released about 2 weeks ago. And you'll be getting a copy of those shortly. You'll be sending you an email link as well as getting you a digital version as well through a flash drive. But that was out for review. The EIR takes 45 days for review, which means in mid-September, the public comment period will close, and then we'll go back and analyze all the comments and put together all the responses to comments. So during that time, we're going to be reaching out to the Planning Commission and City Council and anybody else that wants to be heard by us in order to give them some briefings on where we're at and where we're going. Those are all targeted again for August and September, and what we're hoping to do is get this before this body here fall in 2020 for your review and approval. I discussed outreach a few minutes ago. If you may realize that we had a couple of community workshops end of July, early August. Had over 120 participants out there. Some of their feedback is listed below there, which included environmental justice, the impacts of the timeline up due to COVID, community engagement, be sure we do this in multiple languages, transparency, and as well as arts and culture, open space, and displacement. All those are kind of key feedback topics that we got. Based upon that feedback, we're having another meeting. Again, it has to be virtual due to the COVID environment. We're having that at the end of this month there. So part of that feedback from that group was, let's meet again, and which we are doing. So we'll have another follow-up meeting with the community in a couple of weeks. So that's kind of a big picture overview of the general plan update process. There's our webpage, email, phone number if you ever need to reach us. Of course, you've got Min's number. You got him 24/7. He'll answer any questions you have day or night. He's there for you to answer your questions. So. And with that, that is my presentation. Thank you very much. Here to answer any questions that you may have.
Council members, questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Vince, thank you for that presentation. And I didn't quite hear that. Is Vernie still the project manager on this update?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and so the residents and stakeholders that they want to reach him is the 714-667-2781 number, the way to get a hold of him?
That's one way. Email as well, yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. And my only request, I know you guys are going to bring a lot for the public and for everybody to look at, and Planning Commission and Council. I would just ask that as we get closer to the hearings, that staff takes the time to meet with the individual planning commissioners and the council members, so that because I know you guys have done a fantastic job meeting with the community, and I know Hassan, when Hassan was with us, I know that he was very big on all it took was less than a handful of people, and him or staff would be there to meet. So I know you guys have really been doing the outreach over the life of this project, but I would just ask that as we get closer to really set up meetings individually with the council members and the planning commissioners.
Thank you. Got it.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Solorio. A couple of things.
Yes, go ahead, just go ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to commend Vince for the presentation. I know when I think of Mr. Fregosa, I think of who else kind of could do a good job on this, and he was perfect because you can look, I think, 25 years back, or I don't know how many years you've been here now, but about that almost, and you could look 25 years forward. And, I've seen you in many of these committees. I've seen you, in many aspects, and, I appreciate seeing your work in here. I know before a general plan, all of these changes would need to be project by project, and many of these past, years, you've been doing it the hard way, whereas now I think you and the community can look forward and work on a vision plan about how things ought to be, so that for residents and businesses moving forward, things will be easier and better. So first, big kudos on that. For me, when I look at this general plan, I also look at what follow-up projects should follow after this. And I know that I've learned a little bit more about environmental justice in terms of how a city can include it in a plan like this, but I don't want to have it just sit there on the shelf in the future that it's in the general plan. I think that we've learned some things as staff and as community leaders about what that means in our areas, and let's figure out how we might be able to move some of those issues forward rather than just let it sit there. The other area is the economic prosperity piece. That's always been important, but now you add on top of that COVID and what rebuilding from it means. And then there are many other opportunities for the city in that way. For the EJ piece, environmental justice, talk a little bit about what you feel the value is for the city, because again, we haven't really looked at this from a general plan standpoint. What's the value for us today, and how's it going to help us out 10, 20 years?
Yeah, thank you for the question there, and it's a team effort, by the way. Environmental justice is something that we kind of learned on the go as well. As I mentioned, just took effect in 2018. So we've been outreaching to the community and picking up all the different key points that they're looking on, everything from pollution control and land use compatibility, all those kind of things we're looking at, and many other ones we're looking at now, to how we're going to weave it in there in the document to make sure it's usable. As you mentioned, we took the effort to put all the policies within the document so it doesn't just sit in the shelf, that separate element. So that was a concerted effort on Vernie's part and his team, was to take this document and weave them in there so we don't forget what they are. So the value is more community outreach, more community feedback, but also a better relationship with the community as well, because we're taking all these things very serious. We've done a lot of these community outreach and environmental justice items in the past through Scott Kuttner's team, Neighborhood Initiatives. They've been our eyes and ears in the streets out there and all these different types of issues that come up. So we see this as just a continuing effort of what we've already been doing in the past.
Yeah, and I think a key piece is continuing these relationships, because I think sometimes we'll make a big effort when we're planning for a certain thing, and then we do our meetings, we do our emails, and then they stop. If we could find ways of continuing to involve them in city efforts and plan efforts, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you and the rest of the team. I know Min was here, and I know your predecessors also put time into this, but I know that you've been here long enough to know the needs of the city, so thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Peñalosa. Mr. Mayor, are you there? Well, I'll acknowledge myself.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just also just wanted to thank you guys for this presentation. I want to kind of disagree a little bit with my colleagues. I want to caution us and to not pat ourselves on the back too much when it comes to the outreach being done. Just because and I had a very good conversation last week with the director of planning and building, Min Tai, and we have addressed some of my concerns via the website. But just because we've had community meetings and whatnot, it's not. I don't think it's something to be proud of when you look at the amount of people we're reaching. 70 people over the 2 meetings that we had on July 31st to August 1st. In a city of nearly 500,000, and I asked the executive director where did we publish this general plan update. We had an Excel, we had a Facebook post, and I pointed out that we had 6 engagements on the city's Facebook page on the posts of the general plan update, which and one of them was my colleague. So again, that's 5 people that we reached via Facebook in a city of 500,000 and in a Facebook page of over 16,000 likes that follow the page. So the concerns that I've heard from residents at these different neighborhood meetings is that it's always been a presentation and not so much a ongoing dialogue and conversation of what is happening and what's going on with the general plan update. I want to make sure that that we're proactive and not wait till we hear the backlash from the community that there isn't enough engagement going on with the community after the 2 meetings. We should realize as a planning department, August 2nd on Sunday, be like, you know what, there was only 50 people there yesterday. I'm going to make sure I schedule another one in the next couple of weeks. Be proactive in these efforts, because, the more that we could get this out there for the public to see, the easier it's going to be for all of us. And some of it's been addressed, but, I clicked on the general plan draft and updates on the city's website, and that's another thing. I, as a sitting council member, could barely understand what's going on because there's so much information on the website. It's been fixed a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Mintai, for addressing some of the concerns with how the information is laid out and how accessible it is. But again, we could still work on this. Constant engagement with the public and pushing this information out there is always going to make us do better versus just doing the bare minimum, which is what we often do. So thank you for the presentation. I know it's a lot of work and it's long overdue, and we're in the right direction, but the community engagement and just putting this information out there is where we really got to push it and double down on it. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember.
Go ahead,
Sarmiento.
Councilor Vincent Sarmiento. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, and thanks, Tocayo, for that presentation, Vince. Tocayo is a friendly word in Spanish that says you call that with a person with the same first name. Listen, I know that you and Bernie and Min and everybody else in planning and building have done good work, and I was part of the council that helped fund the efforts to update and revise the general plan years ago. I'm not sure even how far back it goes. It must go back to 2015 or 16. In any event, I know it's certainly a gargantuan effort, and I know you said it well. It's the city's constitution. So what's kind of troubling to me are a couple of things. One of them is, even under the best of conditions, outreach and public engagement are really challenging. Not anywhere, but especially in our town, because as we're struggling with the census and getting information out to people on that, we're realizing what a hard to reach community we have. And to get them involved and participating on discussions with respect to a general plan update, it's even more challenging. So look, doing it under these conditions of a pandemic just seems that it is even more and more difficult. So I'm not sure how the quality of that feedback is. And I would agree with Councilmember Peñalosa. I think that most people I speak with, look, they don't even know how to get a hold of anybody on this and how to connect. And I think that the value of this document, especially since it's not going to be looked at after it's approved for a very long time, we're looking at this document almost 40 years after it was adopted. I think it's worth doing a good job, and these conditions right now just don't lend themselves to good community input. There's another issue that I'm also troubled with, is that there's something in the law called dead hand control. And what that means is that, when right before folks leave, they want to, sort of define or put their fingerprints on a long-term, long-lasting document. And here, it's probable that 3 of the 7 council members won't be here beyond November, yet we're going to be deciding on a document that is going to be lasting for the next couple of decades at least. So I don't know if it's an intelligent thing to accelerate this and just ram it through and approve it with such little engagement from the public, because the value of the public's engagement is not listening to presentations. It's actually commenting on what the product is and saying, we don't agree and we want to adjust certain elements of it. So I think that's where the real value is. And I think SB 1000 that was adopted that triggered the environmental justice question is relatively new. So that's something we haven't lived with for very long. So I think we should take a step back and maybe slow it down, not just for that, but for another reason as well. A slide earlier, Vince, you had showed that there are certain items that the public has talked about. Let me make sure you have another bullet point on something that's very important that people have spoken to me about, is the affordable housing element here that we're dealing with in this proposed update to the general plan. It is very alarming to know that the entire housing opportunity ordinance, the affordable housing effort, could be gutted by the way we're updating this general plan. So that is extremely troubling. Whether or not we revise the WHO, which I think we will tonight because there is majority support for it, this general plan update can just eviscerate all the efforts that we've made to make sure we provide housing affordable to our residents that are low income. So this is a huge departure. I think it would violate the housing element. I think this is going way, way too fast under conditions that are just extremely challenging for us to have our public comment and for us to produce a document that's going to be long-lasting and valuable and going to be able to guide us into the next 20, 30 years. So, look, I would just say let's consider taking a step back. Let's consider slowing this down. We're going to be under these conditions for a while. Let's rethink some of these really challenging questions and see what we can do to allow for better engagement once conditions improve. These are not the conditions to be adopting such an important document for the future of the city. Those are my comments.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead, please.
Mr. Mayor, some of the council members earlier were saying that we have a lot of speakers, so we're going to limit the council member comments to 3 minutes also. Is that okay with you?
I'm trying to. I've asked the clerk, I've texted her to try to do that, and she's let me know when people go over 3 minutes, but yes.
All right.
Please
Thank you,
go
sir.
ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
No, thank you. That was just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments? Okay, I know we have a very heavy agenda, so thank you to Vince and the staff for that update. I now want to turn things over to our city clerk. Can you read the proper information out to the callers, and let's all give them 3 minutes. Right now, how many do we have? Let me just ask you that question first, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mayor and council members, we have 43 callers.
All right, let's give everybody 3 minutes. I think that's appropriate. Why don't we go ahead and let's begin, Madam Clerk. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And before I begin, I do want to inform everyone that we have been notified by the State Power Authority and Electric Company that we may experience an outage, so that everyone's aware. There are speakers that we have currently on hold. Want to make sure that you're aware, caller, that once you've been unmuted, please dial *6 to speak. There's been a Zoom update, and we want to make sure that you're aware of this new change. On your phone, you'll see a star and a 6. For those Spanish speakers, por favor marque *6 para reactivar su llamada. Después que le hayamos desactivado. Okay, and caller with the last 3 numbers, 298, you've been unmuted. Please dial *6 in order for you to speak. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Janine. I live in Ward 1. I am opposed to item 22B, the armored police vehicle. We don't need it. We should have police that are less militarized, not more. City police departments don't need military equipment. Police and military serve different functions. We have better uses for this money, especially right now. I also would like to encourage the council to consider changes to the municipal code related to the council's prior conversation on the proposed charter amendments from several meetings back. In particular, proposed charter amendment section 1206 regarding campaign contribution limitations. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Caller with the last 3 numbers, 034, you have been unmuted. Please dial *6 in order for you to be unmuted on your end.
Hello, I'd like to speak on 2 agenda items.
Please proceed.
First, I'd like to speak on item 85B, which is
It's all about power.
And money.
Almost $700 billion per year.
And it only happens once every 10 years.
It directly impacts our representation in government.
And the money that goes to
our schools,
our housing,
our neighborhood programs,
our lives.
So what is it?
A population count of America.
But it's much more than that. It's the basis of distributing power and money.
From the government to our communities.
The unfortunate part is that a lot of us are not counted.
It's up to us to change that.
When we aren't counted, our communities don't get their fair share.
For each person not counted,
that community loses over $100,000.
For a household or a family of 5. But we can change it.
When the census comes in the mail,
fill it out. Don't throw it out.
Or do it online.
And make sure to count everyone in the household.
Little ones too.
The census begins in 2020.
Most households will get a postcard in the mail next March.
Telling them it's census time.
And we're required to fill it out.
This count will determine how many Congress members each state will get.
And to draw new congressional maps in 2021.
It's also used to draw maps for basically every level of government.
From the state legislature to school boards.
So this is a huge opportunity for us.
To make a positive impact on our communities.
It's critical that we are all counted.
So go ahead.
Take the pledge.
Pledge to be counted.
Because there's too much at stake not to.
I count.
Yo cuento.
Yo cuento.
I count.
Yo cuento.
Yo cuento.
We count.
We count.
We count.
We count.
We count.
Santa Ana counts.
Santana cuenta.
Santa Ana counts.
Santa Ana counts.
In 2020, you count. Santa Ana counts.
Tiene que ver con poder.
¿Y dinero?
Casi $700 billones por año.
Y solamente ocurre una vez cada 10 años.
Impacta directamente nuestra representación en el gobierno.
Y el dinero que va hacia
nuestras comunidades,
nuestras escuelas,
nuestras viviendas,
nuestras vidas.
Y entonces, ¿qué es?
El censo.
Un conteo de la población de los Estados Unidos.
Pero es mucho más que eso. Es la base de distribución de poder y dinero.
Del gobierno a nuestras comunidades.
La parte desafortunada es que muchos de nosotros no somos contados.
Y depende de nosotros para cambiarlo.
Cuando no somos contados, nuestras comunidades no reciben su parte justa.
Por cada persona que no es contada,
su comunidad pierde más de $20,000 sobre 10 años.
Para un hogar o una familia de 5.
Esa comunidad pierde más de $100,000.
Pero podemos cambiarlo.
Cuando el censo llega por correo.
Llénelo, no lo tire.
O hazlo en el internet.
Y asegúrense de contar a todos en su hogar. No tengan miedo. El censo comienza en 2020.
La mayoría de los hogares recibirán una tarjeta postal por correo el próximo marzo, diciéndoles que el censo ha llegado.
Y estamos obligados a completarlo.
Esta cuenta se usará para determinar cuántos congresistas recibe cada estado.
Y para dibujar nuevas mapas del Congreso en 2021.
También se usa para dibujar mapas para básicamente todos los niveles del gobierno.
De la legislatura estatal al consejo escolar. Entonces, esta es una gran oportunidad para nosotros.
Para tener impacto positivo en nuestras comunidades.
Es crítico que todos seamos contados.
Así que adelante.
Haz la promesa.
promete de ser contado.
Porque hay demasiado en juego para no participar.
Yo cuento.
Yo cuento.
Yo cuento.
Yo cuento.
Contamos.
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 Santana cuenta.
Santa Ana cuenta.
Santana cuenta. Santa Ana cuenta.
Santa Ana cuenta.
En 2020, cuentas. Santa Ana cuenta.